You know that gut feeling you get when something just doesn't add up, but you can't quite put your finger on it? That's where my story begins. My wife, Claire, and I had been together for 7 years, married for 3. We weren't perfect, but we worked. Or at least I thought we did. I'm 34, she's 31. We both worked full-time jobs, had a small apartment, and were planning to buy a house next year. We even had a shared Pinterest board for it. But a few months ago, I started noticing changes. Little things. She began guarding her phone like it was a nuclear code. She'd take it into the bathroom, sleep with it under her pillow, and suddenly had a password on her laptop, something she never did before. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. I mean, everyone deserves privacy, right? But it wasn't just that. She started working late, more often. The thing is, she works in HR. No one in HR stays until 10 p.m. on a Tuesday unless something's seriously wrong. When I'd ask, she'd smile in that slightly patronizing way and say, "You're being paranoid, babe. I'm just busy." But it didn't sit right with me. Then one night, while she was in the shower, her phone buzzed on the counter. It was a message from a name I didn't recognize. "Can't wait to see you again," winking-faced. My heart actually stopped. I didn't even open it. I just stared at the screen, frozen. My mind ran through every possibility. Maybe it was a coworker joking. Maybe I was misunderstanding. But deep down, I already knew. That night, I didn't say anything. I just lay there, next to her, pretending to be asleep while she scrolled on her phone. And I made a decision right then, not to react. Not yet. Sometime. The perfume she didn't usually wear during the week. The extra effort she put into her makeup before late nights. Even the way she started dressing a little differently. More stylish, more confident. One Friday night, she said she was going out for drinks with coworkers. I casually asked who was going, and she rattled off a list of names I vaguely recognized. I nodded, smiled, and said, "Have fun." But the moment she walked out the door, I grabbed my keys. I didn't want to become that guy, you know? The one who stalks his wife. But I just needed to see the truth with my own eyes. She said she was going to the Velvet Room, a trendy cocktail bar downtown. I parked across the street, feeling ridiculous but determined. After about 15 minutes, I saw her walking down the sidewalk. But she wasn't alone. She was with him. Tall guy, clean cut, probably mid-30s. The way they looked at each other. Yeah, no coworker stands that close. No coworker brushes their hand against yours like that. I sat there in my car, heart pounding so loud I could hear it in my ears. They went inside, laughing, like they didn't have a care in the world. And right then, I realized something. I could storm in there, make a scene, scream, and demand answers. But what would that accomplish? She'd lie, or cry, or twist it back on me. So I didn't do any of that. I drove home. And when she came back later that night, smelling like the same cologne I'd noticed faintly on her scarf last week, I didn't say a word. Because the power of not responding is that it gives you time to see everything clearly before you act. About a week after that night, I couldn't take the silence anymore. I wasn't angry in the way people expect. No shouting, no accusations. It was more like this cold, hollow ache that had settled deep inside me. Claire came home late again, around 11:30. She looked startled to see me sitting on the couch in the dark, just staring at the TV that wasn't even on. She laughed nervously. "You scared me. Why are you sitting here like that?" I didn't answer right away. I just asked, "Who's Mark?" Her face went pale. Not shocked, pale. Like her blood just drained out of her body. That's when I knew I wasn't wrong. She hesitated. "He's just someone from work." "From HR?" I asked, keeping my voice calm. "You've been having drinks with someone from HR at the Velvet Room?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Then she said, "It's not what you think." I actually laughed. Not in a bitter way, just sad amusement. "Then explain it to me, Claire. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks exactly like what I think." She sat down across from me, rubbing her hands together, eyes glistening. It started out innocent. We were working late, venting about stress. I didn't mean for it to go anywhere. It just happened. I remember looking at her and feeling this strange mix of emotions. Anger, disappointment, even pity. She wasn't some villain. She was just a coward who made weak choices. I asked how long. 2 months, she whispered. That was the moment my stomach dropped. 2 months of lies, of pretending, of sleeping beside me while thinking about someone else. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just said, "Thank you for being honest," and stood up. She looked confused, like she expected me to explode. But I didn't. I went to the bedroom, packed a small bag, and told her I'd be staying with my brother for a while. She started crying, begging me to stay, to talk. But I just walked to the door, because sometimes silence says more than anything else ever could. When I got to my brother's place that night, I sat in my car for nearly 20 minutes before I could even go inside. I just stared at the steering wheel, numb. My hands were shaking, but I couldn't tell if it was from anger or heartbreak. Probably both. My brother, Matt, opened the door half asleep, wearing boxers and a confused expression. When he saw my face, he didn't ask a single question. Just stepped aside and said, "Couch is yours." The moment I sat down, everything hit me at once. The disbelief, the humiliation, the grief for a version of my life that no longer existed. I actually laughed and cried at the same time. It was such a ridiculous, painful cocktail of emotions that I didn't even know what to do with myself. The next morning, I woke up to a dozen missed calls and texts from Claire. "Please, we can fix this. I love you. I made a mistake. Can we talk? Please don't do this to us." But every message felt like another knife twist. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about her guilt. I didn't respond. I didn't even open half of them. I just left my phone face down and made coffee with shaking hands. And let me tell you, silence hurts more than yelling. She must have expected a fight, maybe even forgiveness, but what she got instead was nothing. And that nothing? It made her unravel. Over the next few days, she sent more messages. Voicemails. Long emails that read like diary entries. One of them even said, "I can't stand your silence. It's like you've disappeared." That's when I realized the truth. For years, I had been the one trying to fix everything. I'd been the one to calm her down, to reassure her, to be understanding. But not this time. This time, I let the silence do the talking. And that silence, though heavy and cold, was the beginning of me finally taking my power back. By the end of that week, my silence had clearly gotten to her. She showed up at my brother's apartment unannounced on a Saturday morning. I heard the knock, looked through the peephole, and there she was, eyes red, clutching a coffee cup like it was a peace offering. "Please, can we just talk?" she said the moment I opened the door. I didn't invite her in. I just stood there, calm but detached. "About what, Claire?" She started crying again. "About us. About everything. I messed up. I know that. But I've ended it with him. I swear I have." Her voice cracked. She looked so small in that moment, so desperate. Part of me wanted to believe her, to comfort her. But another part, the part that had spent nights staring at the ceiling wondering where she really was, couldn't. Then she said something that caught me completely off guard. "I told him I couldn't see him anymore," she said. "He didn't take it well." I frowned. "What do you mean?" She hesitated, then pulled out her phone and showed me a string of messages from the guy, Mark. Angry, manipulative texts. Things like, "You think you can just walk away? Your husband's going to find out everything. You'll regret this." I'll admit, it threw me for a loop. For a second, my protective instincts kicked in. This guy wasn't just some fling. He was obsessed. "Did you tell him where I am?" I asked. She shook her head. "Of course not. I just wanted to be honest with you. I need your help." I stood there, processing. Here she was, the woman who'd lied to me for months, now scared of the very person she cheated with. The irony wasn't lost on me. I finally said, "Claire, you need to go to HR, file a report. Block him. But you and we're done. You need to fix this mess without me." She just stared at me, like she couldn't believe I was serious. Then she whispered, "You really mean that, don't you?" "Yeah," I said quietly. "I do." As she walked away, tears streaming down her face, I realized that not responding had done something yelling never could. It put the entire weight of her actions back on her. And for the first time since everything started, I felt calm. A few days after that last conversation, I thought the storm had passed. Claire had gone quiet, and I started focusing on work again, trying to rebuild some sense of normalcy. I wasn't sleeping great, but at least I wasn't drowning in texts anymore. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. I usually ignore those, but something in my gut told me to pick up. Is this Mr. Larson? The voice asked. Yeah, I said. This is Detective Alvarez with the City Police Department. We'd like to ask you a few questions about a situation involving your wife, Claire Larson. My heart stopped. It turned out that Mark, the guy she'd been seeing, had shown up at her workplace. Drunk. He'd caused a scene, screaming, threatening her, even knocking over a computer monitor before security dragged him out. Claire had filed a report, and apparently, she'd mentioned that I might be contacted since I was listed as her emergency contact. I felt this weird mix of disgust and pity. I didn't want to be involved anymore, but at the same time, hearing that this guy had gone off the rails made it all feel so real, so pathetic. That night, Claire called me again. I let it go to voicemail. When I finally listened to it, her voice was trembling. I'm so sorry. I didn't think it would get this bad. He's been showing up near my building. I don't know what to do. I didn't respond. Not immediately, at least. Instead, I sat in silence again, just like before. Not out of cruelty, but because I finally understood that her chaos wasn't my responsibility anymore. It was strange, but empowering. For years, I had been the guy who fixed things. The guy who soothed, reassured, and sacrificed. But now, I was done. Later that week, I got another call from Mark's wife. Yeah, you read that right. Apparently, she had found Claire's number in his call logs and decided to reach out. She was furious, but also broken. And the kicker? She didn't even know he was married until that call. Claire had been the other woman without realizing it. I hung up, stunned. And in that moment, I realized something both painful and liberating. Claire's betrayal had ended our marriage, but Mark's betrayal had destroyed herself. All without me ever having to raise my voice. After the whole police incident and the call from Mark's wife, everything inside me shifted. For months, I'd been living in reaction mode. Hurt, confused, trying to make sense of something senseless. But now, for the first time, I wasn't reacting. I was choosing. Claire kept reaching out. Emails, voicemails, even a handwritten letter she slipped under my brother's door. The old me would have answered. The old me would have said, let's talk. But this version of me, the one that had sat in silence long enough to feel the calm under the chaos, knew better. Silence wasn't passive anymore. It was a boundary. One night, Matt and I were having a beer in his living room when he said, "You're handling this better than I expected." I shrugged. I think I just finally realized I can't fix people who don't want to be fixed. He nodded slowly. That's a tough lesson. The next day, Claire showed up again. This time, she wasn't crying. She looked tired, hollow. She asked if we could talk, just once more. Against my better judgment, I agreed, but only in public. We met at a small cafe. She sat across from me, hands trembling around her cup. I just wanted to say I understand if you can't forgive me, she said softly. But I hope one day you can at least see that I never meant to hurt you. I looked at her, really looked, and saw not the woman who betrayed me, but the woman who lost me. I don't hate you, I said quietly, but I can't go back. Too much happened. Too much silence between us now. Her eyes filled with tears. So this is it. Yeah, I said. This is it. There was no drama. No yelling. Just quiet finality. When she left the cafe, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Peace. It's strange how sometimes the power you think you've lost is the one that comes back the moment you stop fighting for it. That day, I didn't just lose a marriage. I gained clarity, and I realized that the silence I once thought was weakness was actually my greatest strength. The first few weeks after that final conversation felt surreal. It's like my brain was still wired to expect her. Her shoes by the door, her coffee mug on the counter, the sound of her humming in the shower. But there was nothing, just quiet. At first, that quiet felt like loneliness. Then, slowly, it started feeling like freedom. I moved out of my brother's place and into a small one-bedroom apartment across town. It wasn't much, creaky floors, old kitchen tiles, a view of the parking lot, but it was mine. For the first time in years, every item in that space was chosen by me, for me. The first night there, I made pasta, poured a glass of wine, and just sat on the floor eating while listening to old records. No phone buzzing, no anxiety, just peace. Of course, there were bad days too. Days when I'd see an old photo on social media and feel that punch in the gut again. Days when I'd think about the future we were supposed to have, the house, the kids, the trips, and wonder if it was all just an illusion. But little by little, I started filling that silence with myself. I picked up running again. I reconnected with old friends I'd drifted from. Even started therapy, something I probably should have done years ago. My therapist said something that stuck with me. You can't control the storm, but you can stop standing in the rain. That hit me hard, because that's what I'd been doing, standing in her chaos, trying to hold an umbrella for both of us. Now, I was learning to step out of it. The weirdest part? I started enjoying not responding, not just to her, but to drama in general. I'd get texts from people fishing for gossip, and I'd just let them go unanswered. Silence became more than a weapon, it became a shield. And in that quiet, I started hearing something new, my own voice again. It had been about 3 months since the last time I saw Claire. Life was finally starting to feel normal again, or at least my version of normal. Work was steady, I was sleeping better, and I even started smiling again without feeling guilty about it. Then one morning, while scrolling through my emails before work, I saw her name pop up. Subject line, "Please read this." I just stared at it. For a full minute, I debated deleting it without opening it. But curiosity, mixed with that old ache, got the better of me. So I clicked. It wasn't an apology this time. Not really. It was something stranger. "I'm in therapy now," she wrote. "I've been trying to understand why I did what I did. I don't expect you to forgive me, but I wanted you to know that I'm changing. I also wanted to say thank you for not responding. Your silence made me face myself. I never realized how much I leaned on other people to fix me until you stopped trying." I reread that last line over and over. It was surreal. The very thing that once drove her crazy, my silence, had become the catalyst for her self-reflection. For a second, I almost replied. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to type something simple, like, "I'm glad you're getting help." But then I stopped, because this wasn't my story to re-enter. It was hers to finish alone. So, I closed the laptop. No response. Later that day, during lunch, I got another surprise. My phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. "Hey, I think we might know each other. This is Mark's ex-wife." I froze. "What now?" She explained that she'd found my number through one of the police follow-up documents. She said she'd been through hell too. Divorce, lawyers, therapy, and that she just wanted to say she understood everything I'd gone through. We ended up talking on the phone that evening. It wasn't awkward, it was oddly comforting. Two strangers connected by betrayal, not bitterness. We talked for nearly 2 hours about everything: relationships, trust, forgiveness. By the end of it, we were laughing. And when I hung up, I realized something profound. Sometimes life breaks you in ways that make you see people differently. Sometimes, from the wreckage, you meet someone who actually gets it. And that night, for the first time in a long time, I felt curious about what might come next. Over the next few weeks, Mark's ex-wife, her name's Rachel, and I kept in touch. At first, it was just small check-ins. A text here, a funny meme there, the occasional, "How are you holding up?" kind of conversation. But slowly, those messages started turning into late-night calls. The kind where you end up talking about everything and nothing at the same time. She had this dry, honest humor that I really liked. There was no pretending, no sugarcoating. Just two people who had seen the worst of love and were trying to remember what kindness felt like again. One night, she said something that stuck with me. "It's strange, isn't it? How someone else's betrayal can bring two completely different people together." I laughed. "Yeah, it's like emotional recycling." She snorted. "I guess we're each other's recycled hope then." There was a silence after that, but it wasn't the heavy kind. It was warm, natural. We decided to meet in person one Saturday afternoon. I was nervous, but it felt right. We met at a quiet park cafe, the kind of place where nobody's in a rush. She looked different from how I'd pictured. Calmer, softer somehow. But her eyes had that same tired wisdom I'd seen in my own mirror. We talked for hours. No judgment. No hidden agendas. No pretending to be over it. Just real conversation. At one point, she said, "Do you ever wish you could go back and change things?" I thought about it. No, I wish they hadn't happened, but I needed them to. She nodded. Yeah, me too. That was the first time I realized healing doesn't always look like moving on alone. Sometimes it looks like walking side by side with someone who understands your scars. By the time the sun started to set, I noticed something unexpected. I wasn't thinking about Claire anymore. Not even a little. That night, when Rachel texted, "I had a good time today," I smiled and replied, "Me too." That night, when Rachel texted, "I had a good time today," I smiled and replied, "Me too." Simple, honest, no games. And maybe that's what real beginnings look like. Not fireworks or big gestures, just peace after a long storm. Just when I thought things were finally stabilizing with Rachel, life decided to throw one more curveball. I was at the grocery store picking up some essentials when I saw Claire. She was with her new boyfriend, or at least I assumed he was new. I didn't approach her. I didn't make eye contact. I just froze for a second, then kept walking, my cart rattling across the linoleum. Later that night, she sent me a text. Simple, direct. "We need to talk. Please." I stared at it for a long time. Part of me wanted to reply, to confront, to unleash all the emotions I'd bottled up. But then I remembered the lessons I'd learned over the past months. The power of not responding. I didn't reply. The next day, she called. I didn't answer. Voicemails piled up. Messages on WhatsApp. Emails. All demanding explanation, closure, attention. All of them met with the same response: silence. It was hard at first. My fingers itched to type something. Anything. But then I realized. Every time I responded, I gave her the chance to pull me back into the chaos. And I wasn't going there anymore. After a week of radio silence, the messages stopped. She eventually moved on, or at least stopped reaching out. And I didn't feel relief so much as freedom. Not responding wasn't passive. It was active. It was choosing my peace over the drama she had brought into my life. It was protecting myself without having to say a single word. That's when I realized something important. Sometimes the best answer is no answer at all. And in that silence, I finally felt like I was truly free to start again. After that week of radio silence, life started to settle in a way I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't haunted by past messages or wondering what Claire was up to. Instead, I had this quiet confidence, a calm that comes from finally drawing boundaries and refusing to let someone else's chaos control your emotions. Rachel and I continued seeing each other, slowly. We weren't rushing into anything. No official labels, no dramatic declarations. Just dinners, walks, and late-night talks. The pace felt right, natural, almost healing. At work, I noticed I was more focused, more patient, and oddly more energetic. I could handle challenges without getting emotionally derailed. My friends noticed too. "You seem lighter," one of them said. And I realized they were right. The silence, the decision not to respond, not to react, had given me back my energy. I even started journaling again. Every morning, I'd write down thoughts, fears, and gratitude. And slowly, I started noticing patterns. How much I had carried, how much I had given away to people who didn't deserve it. And for the first time, I wasn't carrying it anymore. One day, sitting on my balcony with my coffee, I realized the strangest thing. The silence that had once felt heavy now felt liberating. It wasn't empty. It was full of space, possibility, and clarity. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was living. And it all started the day I chose not to respond. Because sometimes, saying nothing at all is the most powerful thing you can do. By now, it had been almost 6 months since Claire and I officially ended things. Life wasn't perfect. Whose life ever is? But I felt more grounded than I had in years. And the weirdest part? The betrayal I had endured had turned into a teacher rather than just a wound. I learned a few things I never expected. Control your reactions, or they'll control you. For so long, I tried to manage Claire's moods, her lies, her guilt. But the moment I stopped responding, I realized the only thing I could control was myself. That realization gave me power I didn't know I had. Healing is messy and slow. The first few weeks of silence were agonizing. I questioned myself constantly. But eventually, the emptiness became a space where I could breathe, reflect, and grow. Boundaries are everything. Not responding wasn't cruelty. It was a boundary. And sometimes, that's the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for someone else, even if they don't understand it at the time. People reveal themselves through their choices, not their words. Claire could apologize, cry, beg, but the choices she made over months told me the real story. And I had to honor that truth, even when it hurt. Life has a way of surprising you. Meeting Rachel, the unexpected connection born from chaos, reminded me that sometimes betrayal isn't the end. Sometimes, it's the beginning of something better. I realized that betrayal isn't just an ending, it's a mirror. It shows you who you are, who you want to be, and who you're willing to let into your life. And most importantly, I learned that not responding doesn't make you weak. It makes you wise. If there's one thing I want anyone reading this to take away, it's this. Silence can be more powerful than confrontation, more effective than endless explanations, and sometimes even more healing than forgiveness. Here's what I'd say to anyone going through betrayal or manipulation. Pause before you react. Anger and hurt make you want to text, call, or confront immediately. Take a step back. Breathe. Give yourself time to see the full picture before responding. Use silence as a tool, not a weapon. Silence isn't about punishing the other person. It's about protecting your peace and giving yourself space to think clearly. Set boundaries and stick to them. Not responding is one form of boundary. It tells the other person, your actions have consequences, and I won't let them control me. Focus on yourself first. Betrayal often makes you lose sight of your own needs. Rebuild yourself, reconnect with friends, and explore things that make you feel alive again. Understand that healing isn't linear. You'll have days when you want to reply, to scream, to cry. That's normal. Let the silence work, and trust that clarity comes in time. In my case, silence didn't just help me cope, it gave me perspective. It allowed me to see Claire's choices clearly, gave her the space to face her own mistakes, and ultimately led me to a healthier, more genuine connection with someone else. Sometimes, the best action is no action. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is simply not respond. Looking back, I realized that the hardest thing I've ever done wasn't confronting Claire or surviving her betrayal. It was doing nothing. Sitting in silence while my world felt like it was crumbling. Resisting the urge to yell, beg, or plead. Trusting that the quiet itself would show me the way. It wasn't easy. It was painful, lonely, and sometimes terrifying. But that stillness gave me perspective I couldn't have gotten any other way. I saw the truth about Claire, about myself, and about what I deserved. I understood that my peace mattered more than anyone else's guilt or apologies. I also learned that betrayal isn't always the end of your story. It can be the beginning of something new. Meeting Rachel, connecting with her in a way I never expected, reminded me that life can surprise you when you let go of the chaos and focus on yourself. If there's one takeaway from this mess, it's this. The power of not responding is transformative. Silence can protect you, guide you, and even heal you. It gives you control over your own life, instead of letting someone else's poor choices dictate your emotions. I don't hate Claire. I wish her growth and happiness, even if it's not with me. And I've finally learned to trust myself, trust my boundaries, and trust that I can move forward stronger than before. So to anyone struggling with betrayal, manipulation, or emotional chaos, sometimes the bravest, smartest, and most powerful thing you can do is nothing. Sit in the silence. Protect your peace. And let life unfold on its own terms. Because when you stop reacting, that's when you start truly living.